In this enterprise test data video, I'm going to talk through the new Discovery and Insights functionality from the Curiosity platform. It allows us to gain full visibility of your data across complex application landscapes to make more empowered and informed decision making. So, what does that mean? We've created our DAM framework, Discovery, Act, and Monitor. Discover is very much about understanding what data exists, how it's structured, where it is, how it changes. Based on what you discover, you can then go and act upon it. So you can make decisions of, say, compliance or data quality, making sure that your teams can get access to the right data at the right time. And once those teams are set up and leveraging the data that's either been created or that they've got access to, we monitor it from a growth, from a security, from a compliance perspective, to make sure that you understand what's changed, when it's changing, and how it's impacting your teams. It's a very simple framework, but it's incredibly powerful and very proactive when it comes to your data management. Okay, so I've just logged into the portal here, and I think there's two key elements to understand. One is now when you go and create a connection, there is a data insights section here. So I could go and connect to numerous different databases or ERPs and so on and so forth. What I want to make sure is once I've put in the associated connection details that I am checking our data insights box here. What this will do is for my system, in this case Acme Bank, it will auto-generate tasks that we want to complete to essentially run through our discovery phase. So if we start from top to bottom here, we are scanning our database. We are then using some AI to populate the metadata, so column descriptions. What's this particular database doing? How do when you've got particularly obscure column names, trying to give something that means a little bit more to users. We're also then searching for PII, so we're searching for names, addresses, so on and so forth, anything that AI picks up that thinks is potentially compromising. We then go and create ourselves the definition. This is essentially a version control mechanism so that we know what this version of the database looks like. We are counting some rows, and actually I've got this on schedule, so every day this is going to go and count the amount of data that exists in that database so I can potentially understand what's getting a little bit too big and needs to be pruned back, or actually if we're being particularly inefficient with some of our sizing and infrastructure. We're going to validate the data quality. We're going to go and check for things like foreign keys. We're going to see where data rules are being broken, things like, I've got a null column but not null information in there and so on. We're then going to use our AI to go and suggest groupings of particular database tables. So if we've got a particularly large database and we're trying to create customers, for example, we want to know ultimately what's a nice grouping of tables that represents that customer. Maybe the customer, maybe the address, maybe their address history, maybe credit card information. Lots of things go into these different data groups, and we're leveraging AI to help us go and work those things out. We're also going to build some SQL queries for you. So for things that are seen as potentially interesting, balances, unique information, again, potentially some faulty data, we're going to auto-generate you some SQL. We're going to identify essentially high-value tables where particular attributes of those tables are seen as interesting. Maybe they've got a particular set of uniqueness. Maybe it's something to do with the amount of data in there. Maybe it's the volume of change. And at the end of it, we're going to go and email our scan results over so people get a daily report. Now, depending on the execution type, depends on how often you can run these things. Typically, a daily scan, a daily review is absolutely fine. If you're using CI/CD pipelines and doing this as part of a review, then maybe you do this as part of your build process. What this then goes and gives us is as part of our definition, so our version control, we then get our data insights. And our insights are designed to track over time and show us some key information. So my data compliance here, I've got 90 potentially sensitive things that I need to go and do something with. In this case, it's suggesting maybe I go and mask these records. I've got 5 activities that actually are working across this particular environment. So that's generating synthetic data or masking particular records in this sense. I've got my data growth as it sort of occurs across this particular system. So you can see over the last few days there's been a rise in the amount of records that exist in the database. I've got my version control and history, so I can see what's been added and removed over the past few versions. When things change, we are given the summary of that change. So I can see here my public employees table was updated to have a department. And I've then got some other associated details. I've got some of the biggest and smallest tables. So if I was considering trying to reduce my sort of database size or subset, these seem to be the tables that have the most changes going on, probably suggesting that they're most heavily used, but equally something to go and investigate. I can go look at how my AI thinks I should group some tables up. So depending on what I'm trying to pull out of the system, these are the different groupings AI has suggested for us. So these are presenting to our users particular interesting queries that we could run to find out, for example, distribution of age, finding customers with similar names, the year of birth, missing data, depending on what we are doing, offering different ways of being able to go and interact with this data for users that potentially haven't thought about these scenarios or don't have the ability to write this type of code. Okay, so let's just summarize. The data insights from our discovery are really designed to provide actionable insights based on what we find, allow you to be confident in the systems that your teams are using, that the data that they are using is fit for purpose, ready for use, available on demand, and that we, as a tool, are taking a lot of the burden of monitoring and maintaining this information going forwards. So if there are changes, you're notified about them. If there are things that need to be acted upon, you're notified about them. And essentially, we are constantly watching and monitoring for these changes.